All right, factoring trinomials. Here's what we've done. The first step in factoring trinomials is to split up the middle term. We've been talking about that in class a little bit. So anytime you see directions for factoring where it says factor the trinomial, factor the polynomials, factor completely, find the factors. What are the factors of the following polynomials? You are going to do what we're about to do. Okay, we are going to break it up. Remember the word factor means to write as a product. Okay, whenever you're factoring something, you're going to write it as two things being multiplied together. When we're dealing with trinomials, it's going to be a product of two binomials. Okay, and that means it's going to look something like this. One binomial times another binomial. That's what it's going to look like. So anytime it tells you to factor, this is what you're shooting for. One binomial times another binomial. Okay? So the first step in this whole process is to split the middle term, which we've already done for you. Let's take a look. So we took this negative 13x and we split it up into negative 10x and negative 3x. Okay? We've done that for all of these. Now the thing that you'll find about factoring is it gets easier and easier and easier the more you do it. Okay, so in these next couple of videos, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a ton of examples for you. Okay, probably do like 2 or 3 in each video. Now, if you feel confident with factoring, if you watch the first video, this one that you're watching now, and you feel like, okay, I got this, then what I want you to do is try working on some problems on your own before you watch the next video. Okay? Use the videos as a way just to check yourself and make sure that you're doing it right. Make sure that you're still on the right track. If you're confused or overwhelmed or just still a little bit lost with this factoring thing, watch the second video. Okay? Do a few more examples with me. And then if you're still lost, watch the third example video and do some more examples with me. But the key to being successful with factoring is really just to do it over and over and over again until you feel like you could probably factor in your sleep. All right? So don't be overwhelmed by the number of problems. We're going to do a lot of them together, but you do need to practice doing some on your own. So let's dive in and see how this goes. All right, so looking at number 31. A couple things I want you to see here. We have a group here. We're going to take those first two terms and make them a group. And we are going to take these second two terms and we're going to make them a group. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to factor each group by itself. And I'm going to use 2 different color pens, all right, and 2 different colored highlighters. So you can look out for that as well. Actually, I'll probably use 3 highlighters. Bam. So if you want to pause the video and get those, you'll be in good shape. Okay, so looking at this first group, I have x squared minus 10x. Okay, so if the coefficient is 1 here, 1 and negative 10, I can't factor anything out of that. But x squared and x, I can factor out an x. Now, whatever I factor out, in order to see what's left over, I'm going to divide by this factor. So I'm going to divide by x here, and I'm going to divide by x here. And what happens? Well, if I subtract my exponents here, one of my x's is going to cancel, and I'm left with x to the 1. So I've got 1x here. And then if I look at this term, my x's are going to cancel, and I'm left with negative 10. Awesome. Okay? So that's the first group we factored it. Second group, negative 3 and positive 30. Well, since my first term is negative, I know that my common factor has to be negative. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out a negative 3 because 3 will go into 3 and 30. Okay? It will divide into those evenly. Now I'm going to look at my variables, x and no x, so I can't take anything out there, no problem. So now I'm going to divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3 to see what's left over in parentheses. All right, so in this first term, my negative 3's are going to cancel, and I'm left with just x. Here, I've got a positive divided by a negative, which is a negative. 30 divided by 3 is 10. Now, here's what you're looking for, okay? Here's how you will know that you factored correctly. You will have twins. Check it out, guys. You had twins. Congratulations. Yes, you will have the exact same term in your binomials for this step. Now what we're going to do, notice that this is a term right here, and this is a term right here. So these are two separate terms. We're going to factor it again, all right? Looking for what's the same in both of these. What's the same? This binomial is the same. This x minus 10 binomial, it's in this term and it's in this term. So we're going to take our twins and we're going to factor them out. Okay, we factored that part out. So it's not here anymore, it's not here anymore. Well, what is left over? Well, we call these our loners, x and -3. Those are our loners, and they're left over, so we put them in parentheses by themselves. But look what's happened. Our final answer is now a binomial times a binomial. That's how you know you're done, okay? So you've got your twins in one, and your loners come together and become friends in the other, and that's how you know you've done this right. Let's take a look at another one. Let's jump down to 35. Okay. 35. Again, I have one group and two group. How did I get two groups? Well, I took this middle term, -10n, and I split it up here and here. All right? And I want you to be thinking about how did we split that up? Because in the activity we did in class, there was a ton of different ways to split it up. So how do we split it up in a way that we know will work? Right? That's what I want you to be thinking about. I've split these for you, but be thinking ahead. All right, so in this term, or in this group, I'm going to look at n squared and n, because my coefficient, I only have a 1 here, so I can't factor out a coefficient. I can factor out an n, and if I do that and divide by n to see what's left, let's see. Here I will have an n, and here my n's will cancel, and I'll have just 8 all by itself. What about in my green group? -2, +16. Well, I know I can factor out a -2. It has to be negative because my first term is negative. And I cannot factor out any variables. So I'm going to divide by the part that I factored out. That's going to tell me what's left over. Well, here my -2's will cancel, and is left over. Positive divided by negative is a negative. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Bam. Check it out. I have twins. That lets me know that I did it correctly. So for my final answer, I'm going to factor out my twins. They go together. And then I'm going to factor out my loners, or leave them left over in their own binomial. And there you have it. That is the factored form. Now this and this are equivalent, okay? All we did was we took this and we factored it. It's kind of like saying 8 can also be written as 2 times 4. They mean the same thing. They mean the same value. But here it's not factored, and here it is. It's written as two things being multiplied together. So that's all we're doing. We're taking something that is not factored, and we are factoring it, making it a product of two things. All right? Let's take a look at another one. Number 39. All right, so 39, I've got one group and two groups. Okay. In my first group, I have a coefficient of 1 and 8. Can't factor anything out of both of those, so my numbers are good. But I have p squared and p. I can factor out a p. If I do that, I can divide by p, because that's what I factored out, and see what I have left. Well, in this first term, one of these p's is going to cancel, and I've just got 1 left. In the second term, these p's will cancel, and I have +8 left. Cool. Second group, I've got +2 and +16. Well, I can factor out a +2 from both of those. And if I do that, oh, let me look at my variables first. P and no P. Nope, can't factor out any variables if there aren't any variables there. So let's see, I'm going to divide by what I factored out and see what's left over. Here, in this first term, my 2's are canceling and my P is left. Positive divided by positive is a positive. 16 divided by 2 is 8. And that is exactly what I would expect because I wanted to get twins. I wanted them to match. And they do. So great. That means I can factor my twins out. They come together to make a binomial. And once they're gone, what do I have left? P plus 2. My loners come together to make another binomial. And now I have a product of two binomials. So this polynomial has been factored into these binomials. And that is exactly what I wanted. All right, why don't you give number 33 and 37 a try, and then come on back for the second video, and we'll go over them together.